and we're just going to get going this morning. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Juniper Center Thrive Live, where good morning from Vera. That's great. Okay, there we go. So nice to have you here. Thank you for joining, Vera. Thank you all who are here live. For those of you who are watching this after the fact, we're thrilled to have you here as well. We do these once a month, and the goal of the show is to talk about issues regarding mental health, and for clinicians and for everybody else, because we all need to be talking about mental health. It's something that's impacting people at record rates. And like everything else, it's like, has this always kind of been this way? Yes, it has, but now we're talking about it more. So these are conversations to help normalize issues around mental health, because we all have mental health, just like we have physical health, and we want to keep that healthy. Good morning, Sharon. Thank you so much for being here with us. So I am so thrilled to have our guest here today. We have Doug Shaffer, and we're going to be talking about a film called 5,000 Blankets. But let me tell you about Doug, because we're talking about this intersection today between mental health, mental illness, and homelessness, which, in the state of Illinois, I was just looking up some stats. It's just staggering here, and I think probably across the country, especially because of the pandemic, rates of homelessness shot up. But this has been an issue for quite a long time. So today our show is looking at this intersection that often gets lost, overlooked. We walk right past it. This film, it was produced by Doug, and it's really, I think, a fabulous film to talk about how mental illness can lead to homelessness and ways that we can find some hope in the world. So let me tell you about Doug. Doug was born in Philadelphia, but was raised in Chicago. He received his BS in marketing from Illinois State University before getting his MFA film producing from the American Film Institute. He's been actively producing feature films and television projects since 2010, including the film 5,000 Blankets, which came out in December. And obviously that's the one we're going to be talking about today. Known for his humor, Midwest work ethic. That is a thing, by the way. I just want everybody to know, if you're not from the Midwest, that is a thing. And positive can-do attitude, which, boy, to make a film, you'd have to have quite the positive can-do attitude. He loves documentaries and horror movies. The film Raiders of the Lost Ark inspired him to become a filmmaker. So glad to have you here. Welcome, Doug, and welcome everyone to the Juniper Center Thrive Live.
Hello.
Well, good morning, Doug. We just have this technical difficulty today where Doug is going to be speaking to us from his black box, but we're thrilled to have you here.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Well, much appreciated. So, Doug, tell us a little bit about 5,000 Blankets, and how did you come to make this particular film?
Well, this was a project I've been working on for about 10 years. A company I used to work for when a couple years out of grad school, they were interested in getting into kind of faith-based movies. And so a good friend of mine I went to school with, worked at Sony, and worked kind of alongside Rich Peluso, who runs Affirm Films, which is Sony's kind of faith and family arm. Mm-hmm. So he said, we were like, well, look, how can we work together? And he said, well, I got this script called 5,000 Blankets. It's based on a true story. Take a look. We think, it might be pretty interesting, but it was a pretty raw script. And it told the true story of this woman named Cindy Bunch and her son in Texas, in Fort Worth, Texas. The true events that they had gone through, in which her husband and her son's father in his late 30s, was really the sole provider of the household. And, he had a couple of issues throughout his life, but it was all manageable. And then all of a sudden, he had a full schizophrenic breakdown, and
Yeah.
he left the house, and he ultimately went out on the streets. And so they spent their time looking for him all the time. They didn't know where he was, and in that journey to try to find him, Cindy had really got to know a lot of the homeless people in the area, because she needed information on where, obviously she could find her husband. But also, she just started connecting with him. And if anything, this story is about her. It's her origin story, how she became an advocate for the homeless through this process. And in the movie, they're trying to gather 5,000 blankets before this huge winter storm, and hoping they can find, uh, you know, Bobby, his name in the movie, before that storm comes. They're hoping a blanket can reach him, and so they start this drive. And so she does this every year. She has a charity called Philip's Wish in Texas, and it's been going on for a long, long time. So we developed that. I looked at that script, and then I brought a couple friends to kind of work on it and develop it and make it more cinematic and stuff. And then Sony bought PureFlix and started a streaming service. So this was initially supposed to be just part of the streaming service, but it turned out so good they decided to release it theatrically first, which is what we had in December. Now it's back on PureFlix. It just premiered yesterday.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was just yesterday. I saw that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it seems like an incredible film. And I understand that the company who a partner here was a faith-based partner, and that ultimately there's a scene where the wife of the gentleman who had the psychotic break, is kind of what we call it, which people don't think that happens to folks, right?
Mhm.
Like mental illness, we don't think about that. It could be the neighbor next door, it could be somebody in our own family, and somebody can go throughout their life and maybe have a few mental health struggles, but have something that's called a psychotic break, where there is a detachment from reality. And they are now, once you've had a psychotic break, it can be hard to come back, or you can go back and forth in and out of reality. And so the husband, had a psychotic break. It looks like there was a lead up. He was struggling with his mental health, had this psychotic break, and ended up just taking off out of the house.
Yeah.
In Fort Worth. It's not like he was, I mean, like it looked like a suburban community, just kind of walked out the door, and he was gone. And this family just in pieces, trying to find him, and their fear for him, and trying to figure out what they could do. And there's this wonderful scene of her making an appeal to the church of, we need to all be pitching in here. How can we help? And I think that's kind of part of the message about this is mental illness happens. It doesn't have much respect for who you are, what you've been doing in your life. Mental illness can happen. And it's everyone's issue. And if we can figure out how to do something small, that we can have a huge impact, and it can make a big difference for some people. So I just thought, what a great film to bring to the world. So, can you speak about how important it is? Hi, Ivan. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Ivan.
Do you know Ivan?
Yes, Ivan has kind of connected all of us here. So thank you, Ivan.
Thank you, Ivan. Much, much appreciated. That's great. And Ivan is saying that hopes there's another chance to view the film on the streaming service. So that's great. And if anyone else is here today, please feel free. Just let us know you're here. We'd love to hear your questions or your comments or just a quick hello. So, but can you speak, Doug, to the importance of filmmaking and having media representation for these folks that we tend to walk past in the street and try not to look at? And here are films now, like we really need to turn and look at this. So can you speak a little bit to how and why that's so important, and how media can be helpful?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that the stigma has to be broken. These people are people, and when you talk to them, there are people that have mental issues. There's also people that have had like a tragic event a lot of times that really kind of rocked their world. And if you don't have next of kin or something like that, those things can happen. And the number one thing they need, besides obviously, materials, to help them survive on the street, is human contact. And that we have to break that stigma where people are they're like, well, we'll fix the problem, but we don't really want to deal with them. Like, no, like these are human beings. They have, uh, they're the same, just like us. And, but a lot of times they've had some hard times or they just need help. And I feel like there just needs to be, instead of just shooing them away, there needs to be a way to properly engage with them because you can get a lot more done.
You can get a lot more done. And good morning, Elise. Nice to have you here. Yeah, Doug, right. We need to be bringing this more into awareness and
Yeah.
and not just look away, and also realize not everybody wants our help in the way that we
Yeah,
think
and
they will.
we do that in the movie. We actually bring that up, like where she's trying to help, and a guy's like, "Nope, get out of here," and that's going to happen.
Right.
But I think in a lot of cases, if you talk to these people, they want you to talk. They want to be engaged, and if you try to help them, a lot of them are looking for work and whatnot. It just gotta, like some people hit really hard times that are devastating, and it's hard to come back from that. A lot of times, like if you had a loved one that you're with that all of a sudden dies, you got medical bills, poof, you're on the street, and then it's not that hard, or I mean, it's not that easy to come back from that with the price of everything around them. They're just gonna walk into a job and then pay $2,500 a month or $2,000 a month in rent. Like, okay, there just needs to be much more of a much more of a goal to interact with these people and help them, and try to, if they want to try to bring them back, and try to help. There's jobs and stuff they'd be willing to take, but sometimes they need a little, a little hope and human contact to help them. I mean, that's like, I mean, you can't just live in a room your whole life and expect to get better without getting help, having human contact with. That's what we're here for. We're all meant to help each other, and and we're not meant to live apart from one another, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is, they're in the city of Chicago. There's an area called Lower Wacker Drive,
Yeah.
and this has been kind of a bone of contention because there can be like a tent city
Yeah.
down
Mhm.
there in the wintertime, well, during, all seasons. And it's come and gone. Hi, Mark. Thanks for being here. It's come and gone and come and gone. And ultimately, I think the idea is let people be there because they need to be in community. If you kick people out and they're dispersed,
Yeah.
then what do they have?
Yeah.
So, but this is such a complicated issue, Doug. And I like the idea of the message that you can do one thing to be helpful. I
Yeah.
don't, if I say, I don't know anybody knows the solution to this. If we had solutions, we would be executing them, I'd like to think. But the idea of doing one thing, like let's make blankets. They're in the Chicagoland
Yeah.
area. There's something called Blanket of Dreams, where people get together every November and make thousands of blankets to be distributed to homeless folks. It's one thing. It's one afternoon. And it can kind of get around some of the feeling of complete and utter hopelessness and powerlessness
Yeah.
around this issue. So finding something in your community, the 5,000 blankets was what this family did to try to feel like they could do something. The Blanket of Dreams, it's doing something. You making this film, it's doing something.
Well,
So it's
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
no, it's just how do people do something, right?
Well, that's something we address in the film where, you know, Cindy has her ups and downs because she's trying to get help, and she tries um to give it to like shelters or whatever. They're like, we can't take all these blankets, we can't do it. And she's like, well, what are we going to do? And so that's when she took more the initiative to kind of get her friends together and do this stuff herself.
Mhm.
And I think, um, this issue needs a lot of people to get involved. And I think, yeah, little ways and things can help. Whether it's volunteering your time or trying to get in with the local government to figure out ways to alleviate the situation, because there's definitely ways to do it.
Mhm.
Chicago is a little bit more. Uh, there's a huge weather issue with winter and things like that with the homeless,
Oh,
which
yeah.
I think there should be definitely more of a, because that's getting into a kind of fight for your life type of thing for
Oh,
some of
it's
these people.
dangerous. It's just
Yes.
downright deadly to be on the
Hmm.
street. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. But but yes, one person can definitely make a difference. And if somebody wants to get involved, they can get involved. I mean, a lot of these, whether they're different organizations starting other organizations, there's plenty of room to for help and maneuvering to help alleviate the situation. Seriously.
Exactly. And whatever the issue is that somebody feels passionately about, and I would love for homelessness to be one of those,
Yeah.
if we can figure out that one thing, right? Just
Yeah.
doing one thing. So, Doug, how has this film been received so far? What kind of feedback have you been getting, and especially around this issue of mental health? So, what have you been hearing from folks who have had the opportunity to see it? And I hope many more people will.
Well, there's some really intense scenes, and um, we don't take the approach like, okay, we have a magic wand and all these things. By the end of the movie, they all go away and it's all fine. Like the ending in a lot of ways is very bittersweet because they do find, not to give away, but they do find Bobby, but he doesn't get better. Like he doesn't all of a sudden, you know,
Snap out of it.
it's snap out, but no, and he does not get better. And there's actually a look at the end of the movie where Cindy's looking at her husband and she's smiling, but she realizes that this is a lifelong thing,
Mhm.
And so it's been really well received. I think surprisingly so, because I think people weren't really expecting it to
Right.
be heavy, because there's a
Right.
lot of really heavy scenes
Yeah.
in the movie that we do not shy away from at all. So
Mhm.
but it's been very well received. I mean, it's a very emotional movie. Once you see it, like there's just some scenes in that movie that we made that are really intense. And I don't think there's been a lot of movies that have kind of hit it the way we have.
That's right.
Where you have this, Cindy's does her thing, but she's not like a miracle worker. Like she's not going to sit there and woohoo, it's all, everything's fine. It doesn't work like that. But there's a very inspiring message with it, which is like, again, like you mentioned, one person can really make a difference with all this, and
Right.
they
'Cause
can.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, they can't. One person can't for sure.
They can, yeah, and right, they weren't able to save him, and we kinda have to, readjust our expectation.
Yeah,
What is success?
yeah.
And did they provide some comfort to people? Yes. They
Hmm.
couldn't save Bobby, but did they right, you can't save people, and that's not a thing. If that's our objective, that's gonna be a really tough one, but being able to provide some comfort and to feel like they could have some impact. I loved that message of the movie, and
Yeah,
the heavy scenes I think are helpful. Like, that's
yeah,
the reality of
yeah.
the right? We can't sugarcoat this and make it look better than it is,
Hmm.
but that's not a reason for us to do nothing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And is there an invitation? So did you have some personal inspiration either in doing this? Hi, Elizabeth. Nice to have you here, Liz. Um, did you have some personal inspiration for this movie, or was there personal impact for you?
Yeah, my son, I have an autistic son who's 7. So, and he's nonverbal, beautiful child, but he has a lot of, he needs a lot of help. And I think what motivated me to get this message out too is thinking about him. Like if he gets older and I'm not around and something like that happens, it's terrifying. And just bringing awareness about, how mental health is really mental issues are all around us, and they are just not spoken about as much. I mean, when I see some of these people that you see that might be, somebody who's a famous person who's having a difficult time, and then people just make fun of them. I'm like, this person's having a serious
Right.
mental problem, and we're just kind of like, oh, okay, they could just like snap out of it. No, like these are these are issues that need to be addressed, and hopefully they can get the right help they need, because it's all around us. And especially now with all the different stresses and things like that that can really affect people. I feel like we're not robots, we're not machines. We can't just always shake it off and okay, just there's our brains don't work that way. And I feel like there just needs to be uh, more understanding of that in the workplace and in other places as well, and just what people deal with.
For sure. And so, I mean, thank goodness your son has a good and loving family.
Yes.
And of course, you're worried, as I think many people are who have a child. And I have some folks I work with and people that I know who have kids who have a chronic mental illness
Mhm.
or have autism or something along those lines. I have a family member through marriage who has just a horrible, horrible case of bipolar, who has
Yeah.
been homeless despite the family's
Yeah.
efforts. I mean, it happens, and it happens in a lot of families. So,
Yep.
that personal aspect of it, and saying, "Wow, what can we do? What can I do to try to make the world better, or to make sure that my child might have more options and opportunities?" When we think about homelessness and the statistics, I look at statistics and I think, "Are you kidding me? How do we have any idea?" Right? We don't. But somewhere between 30 and 35% of what has been documented of folks who are homeless have a chronic mental
Yeah.
illness. And of women who are homeless, 75% of those have a chronic mental illness. I mean,
Mhm.
it's a big, big number of people. So my thought is, your son at 7, if he can get resources and services, we're actually starting up, and Elise is assisting us with this, as is Mark, um, getting a not-for-profit arm to our practice so that we can get into these communities and provide these services to people who need it when they're younger,
Yeah.
right? Getting people the help when they're younger, if that's possible, giving people more resources. The other
Yeah.
thing is, with folks that are homeless, if they tend to be people who don't have as many internal resources. So it might be a major depressive
Of
issue or
course. Yeah.
PTSD, right? And if we can teach kids when they're younger the resources that they need to be able to manage their emotional world,
Yeah.
they're going to have a much easier time of it. I mean, and that's a little harder, obviously, a lot
Yeah.
harder for your son, but
Yeah.
but but I can see how this was also a personal project
Yeah.
for you as well. So
Well, even going forward, that's like kind of my thing now. Like, I want to really advocate for this, bring more of awareness to it, and families that are affected with mental illness, because it affects the families. There's,
yes.
it's funny because being an autistic parent, uh, people don't really understand what that's like at all. So it's hard in your social circles and even your family circles to get people to understand that. They're like, oh, well,
Mm,
just let's go do this and do this. And it's like, no, like, we can take them there, but we might have to pull the ripcord in like a half hour, depending on how he acts when he's there, because we don't know how he's going to. And so there's certain behaviors and things that sometimes can be unpredictable, and it's a 24/7 job, uh, and getting other people to understand it, because it's not easy. And I feel like a lot of people who don't deal with feel, oh, it's just fine to shake it off, you can do this. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. And so just more of an understanding there would always help. And I also think peer groups and whatnot are always good if there's more of those, uh, which families that are dealing with that can, because I can't even imagine, like, if you're a single mother and you're dealing with a with a child who has a mental disorder. I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, that's got to be so hard to deal with that. And again, it's
mhm.
these these families need a lot of resources, need a lot of help.
A lot. And Doug, I would love us to have a show on that, right?
Yeah.
About the isolation that families experience when people look at their parenting and they don't really understand why are you
They don't
doing what you're
understand it.
doing.
Yeah, they don't understand it. Yeah,
They have
they
no
don't.
idea. And there's a lot of judgment of
Hmm.
parents who are, are trying to help kids who have extra challenges of
Yeah,
should be doing it this way or that way. And then the family gets isolated.
yeah,
And then if something happens to the kid, you don't have that social network. So that's like folks who are watching today, that is an easy takeaway. Don't be
yeah,
judgy. Stay supportive, even if you don't understand. And just trust that the parents have
yeah,
done their research and they know what they're doing.
yeah.
You know,
But back in the day, if you look at back in the day, like for autism, they would blame the mothers
oh
for
yeah.
the reason the kids were autistic, and that is insane. And I feel and like I'm lucky now that with my son's condition, we're in the age we're in because in California, there's um, a lot of places to get help. I can't even
Mhm.
imagine what it was like 15 years ago or 20 years ago dealing with this because nobody knew how to deal with this. They wouldn't. I applaud the families that had to deal with this back just like
Mhm.
10, 15 years ago because it was just a different animal and people didn't understand it.
Yeah, they didn't understand it. And so, Doug, for you, I hope you have a good community around you. And again, folks, really please, if you can't make a blanket with blanket of dreams, if you can't figure out something else you can do in your community, if you know a family who is struggling with a child for whatever reason, just hang in there with them, be
Yeah.
supportive, try to give them some respite. See if there's any way that you can be helpful. That would just be one thing that you could do.
Yeah.
So appreciate you being here, Doug. These half
No
hours
problem.
fly by. So
They
please,
do.
where can people watch your movie?
Right
5,000
now,
Points?
it's on PureFlix right now. I think the subscription is like $10 a month. After it's exclusive on PureFlix for the next couple months, and then March it should be it'll probably be on cable TV or Netflix and stuff. So we want to definitely get the word out more. Want more people to see this because a lot again, I'm no kidding. It's really really good movie. It's very emotional and it'll kind of open your eyes to some things. So
Yeah, for
and
sure.
know that you can really make a difference if you want to help a lot of these communities. So
Right? 100%. You don't have to make 5,000 blankets. You can make one and you can
exactly,
do one thing. That's
make a big.
wonderful. Well, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for being with us, Doug Shaffer, producer of 5,000 Blankets. So appreciate you. I so appreciate you bringing this movie forth. All of you appreciate you being here today. Go do one thing. That's it. But have a wonderful rest of the day. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Thank you so much. Be well.
Thank you.